Welcome to Road to 100 Million, where we are on a mission to impact over 100 million lives to achieve their dreams. Welcome to this episode of Road to 100 Million, where we are on a mission to impact over 100 million lives to achieve their dreams. Today, we have an amazing, actually two guests, the guys from the Next Level University, Kevin Palmieri and Alan Lazaros. They are absolutely amazing guys. I met them through David Meltzer. And they have just been an absolute inspiration for even this podcast and starting this. So without further ado, I'm so appreciative and grateful to have you guys on. How's it going today, guys?
We're living the dream. You keep bringing that energy. I'm going to have to challenge you to an energy duel, my friend. We are doing very well. We appreciate the opportunity, my friend.
We are doing fantastic. Thank you so much. It's awesome to finally meet you, Andrew, and thank you for all the kind words.
Of course. I appreciate you guys. And let's go, Kevin. I'm bringing a lot of energy.
I love it, man. I love it. Dude, it's interesting because I always bring the energy at the beginning of our interviews, and I smiled just like I see a lot of the guests do. So that means you're definitely crushing it.
Thank you. We're just starting out, but we're trying to follow in the footsteps. So yeah, man. So first I wanted to start off and basically how I got so intrigued by you guys. You guys, for the audience, they are mentored and actually sponsored by the podcast by David Meltzer. And one thing I noticed when they started getting on calls and doing a lot of the kind of live shows and whatnot, I noticed these guys had such amazing questions. Like, not only that, but once I started listening to your guys' podcast, the questions you guys ask each other and ask yourselves, like the importance in understanding how to ask those questions. I think, like Napoleon Hill says, judge a man, but not by his answers, but by his questions, and that was something that I really live by. And so I kind of wanted to touch on both of you and see, the importance of asking those right questions and how to know if you're asking those right questions.
Goodness. Fire question. I think it's interesting because I think I'll speak for me first, but I think Alan's just naturally more curious than I am. I just think you always have been that way. For me, of course, I've always wanted to blow people away with my questions because Andrew, I think for me, it's the underdog thing of like, when you come on this show, I want you to leave and say like, oh, those guys are something different. So I think I dealt with super anxiety. So I had to over prep. So my goal was always to ask a question that the guest had never been asked before, even though I already knew the answer. Very rarely does the guest say something about themselves that I don't already know. It's my job to transcode their story to the listeners. So I think that's where I really practice that. But I think it's when it's on a solo episode with Alan and myself, I think it's a similar awareness of like, there's really nothing I can't ask Alan that he'll be able to add value on. Right. So I think it's like the ability to pitch and catch with somebody who won't leave you out to dry. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to come across that as you interview people. Like, you might ask somebody the best question in the world, and if they don't have the capability of answering it, they're going to go right around it. And it's not going to land. But that doesn't really happen with us, I don't think.
No, not often. So I'll start with this. So the unexamined life is not worth living. I think it's Socrates. To me, like Kevin said, I said this to one of our friends recently. Curiosity may have killed the cat, but it made the man or the woman. Curiosity is so important. I don't know where it came from for me, but I have an insatiable curiosity. People used to, if you guys have ever seen the show Friends, there's this one scene where Ross, he's like the smarter one, right? Or whatever. And he wrote a comic book of a superhero and Phoebe ends up finding it. He wrote it when he was a kid. And the comic book was a knowledge man or something like that. And what's his superpower is what Phoebe asked. And he said his superpower is a superhuman thirst for knowledge. I've always had that. And so I'm always so unreasonably curious about why things are the way they are, and so what are some of the questions that I ask myself often? Where am I chasing pleasure at the expense of fulfillment? Where am I the most fulfilled right now? What am I not doing that I know I should? Where am I maximizing my potential? Where am I not maximizing my potential? What I've been doing recently, where am I letting myself off the hook? Where am I negotiating with myself when I've said these should be non-negotiables? You pick up you pick up over time that the people who contemplate life the most end up knowing the most. And I'm very blessed to have tons of mentors, David Meltzer being one of them. That dude has spent his entire life contemplating the universe. That's why he knows so much and can do seemingly impossible things. And so I think an insatiable curiosity is something that drives me every second of every day. My girlfriend is like that too. Thank goodness. Because her and I, even last night, had an hour-long deep talk, just like if we were on a podcast.
I love that. I love that. Cause me and Jacob are exactly the same way. Like our Friday nights off or getting together and kind of just brainstorming and asking like, where can we kind of be better? Where can we kind of do this? And it just starts with those first questions of like, where can we do like where are we not failing enough? Like, where do we think we're too good? Like we're constantly trying to check ourselves and check our own egos. So I absolutely love that because that's just something I picked up from you guys. But another thing that you guys are absolutely like dead on is, understanding you guys' KPIs and PPTs. Like if you guys could explain a little bit about that and also break down to like a very tangible, like how can people actually, go and be able to keep track of their KPIs and understand, the frequency of how often they should be looking at them and how often they should be checking and making sure they're in track and on check, right? So if you guys can just speak a little bit on those, I think that would help the audience a lot.
An Alan answer. I'll let you start.
Okay. Sounds good. So for me, I look at 4 things whenever I coach an individual. The first one is where are they right now in their personal development, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The second one is which direction are they headed, up, down, or neutral. The third one is how quickly are they accelerating in their growth? And then the fourth one is how quickly is the acceleration accelerating? And so those are the 4 facets. And for me, it's goals, core values, and beliefs. And that's kind of someone's alignment to their true north. I have a necklace around my neck. So to answer your original question, though, a KPI is a key performance indicator that basically indicates whether or not you're making progress in alignment towards your highest self. And so when I'm coaching someone, I need to figure out what needs to be measured in order to see whether or not they're winning or losing at their own game. And peak performance tracking, you mentioned PPT. Peak performance tracking is something that our team at Next Level University all uses and many of our clients use as well. And basically it's this. So, okay, let's say you have a goal to lose 20 pounds in the next 20 weeks. Okay, awesome. What needs to be measured in order to see if you're making progress towards that? Obviously, you got to step on the scale. If you want to lose 20 pounds in 20 weeks, that means you have to lose a pound a week. Okay. So the goal is 20 pounds in 20 weeks. The KPI is how many pounds per week are you losing? If it's 0.8, that means we need to exercise more and eat less. If it's 1.2, that means you are ahead of schedule. And so a KPI is one indicator along the journey. Peak performance tracking is basically 12 habits that you track. It's called a daily dozen. You can do 5, you can do 10, you can do 12. I've seen one person do 17. One of my clients was absolutely insane with that. Yeah. But basically we have a percentage every single day that we get on how many, this is what I intended to do today. And then this is what I actually got done. And then you kind of check in with that. And then you notice over time, like, oh, okay, so I haven't been journaling. So this past month, I've got like a goose egg on journaling. At least now I'm aware of where what we refer to as jeffing, where I'm failing. Yep. I think it's an awareness thing.
And we have our business model up because we're always looking at it and trying to improve it. And basically and Alan would love that I'm going to say this. This is going to be a moment for you. We're able to make data-driven decisions versus emotional. Like as an entrepreneur, you feel like you're losing most of the time. But the numbers don't lie, right? Emotions lie all the time. The numbers don't lie. So I try to use the analogy for podcasters. You're a podcaster, right? Mm-hmm. If I told you the 15 most important things to do every day, those are your KPIs. Are you doing consistent content, like really good, high quality content? Yes. Are you getting on other shows? Yes. Are you posting to social media? Are you having tier 1 guests? Blah, 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 blah. Right? You have something to measure against. And Alan's the one who introduced me to that. And it's been a huge win for me because I have 15 things. I have 15 things that I'm supposed to be doing every day. When I'm not doing them, I know why I'm not winning, and it in a weird way, it's like this, it's a good knowing. Even if you're screwing up, you know why. I'd rather know why. I'd rather have the awareness to know why I'm screwing up.
One thing I want to add too is even when you're not getting external results, at least you're putting in the effort. Because as you know, habits come before results. right? Like Tom Brady
Yep.
had great habits before he was Tom Brady. So it's almost like it takes away the ebbs and flows of external results. When our listens go down, it's not because we're Jeffing. It's because it's the ebbs and flow of it. So we're not going to take the emotional hit. Are we doing what we said we'd do or not? And then there's two things really that matter. Do we have the right trains rolling? Are we keeping momentum and accelerating those trains? And are we stopping the wrong trains? That third one is the most important, in my opinion, not to invest time, energy, and money into trains that really need to die or go away.
Pretty hardcore.
Oh man, that's absolutely beautiful, because I love that as far as like the peak performance tracking down from goals to habits, and also as far as the KPIs of understanding, like, you know, the non-negotiables you talk about. Like I have about 10 non-negotiables during my normal routine that I have to get done. Like those are non-negotiables, right? So it's like if I'm not doing those, and recently, like this probably last August when I started actually tracking them, I had a habit tracker and making sure, and I'm like, man, I am not doing as good as I thought I was. You know, I have all 10, and you think, yeah, I'm hitting it all day. And you're like, oh, wait, I missed that day. I missed that day. I missed that. Like you start to see and actually see on results on paper, not just how you feel like, yeah, I think I feel like I did good. So I absolutely love that data over it. But another thing I wanted to touch into too is you guys have some pretty amazing relationships, like not only in business and personal relationships, but intimate relationships too. So I want to talk about a little bit of one, how did you go from, because for me, getting in entrepreneurship and going through this kind of shift and transition and perspective and trajectory, you go through that transition of kind of, you realize like a lot of the people you surround yourself with aren't really on that same trajectory. So you have to, it hurts to come, not, I don't want to say fire friends, but like make new friends. And so how were you guys able to make and build those and relationships that were also aligned? Like, it seems like you guys have like the most beautiful relationships. And I'm like, just getting into that moment of like, okay, where I'm starting to make those relationships, like me and Jacob, like, you know, he was my first accountability partner, where it was like, hey, we were getting lonely over here. Like nobody like talked the same language as we did. And so, you know, how did you guys kind of, you know, cultivate or attract those relationships, and how do you continue to build them?
I think we're going to probably have different answers in terms of like our friendships and mentors. Alan's brought a lot of them. Like, again, I'm not delusional enough to think that I'd be working with Dave if it wasn't for Alan. Like, Alan's a huge reason why that happened. So a lot of the credit I have to give to Alan. You can cut that part if you want. I have no problem with that. But I think it's having the same goals and beliefs and values. I think that one of my favorite quotes, and I think I said this in my story today, are the people in your life the best from your past or the best for your future? A lot of people are living through nostalgia. We used to do this together. You know, we went to high school, we went to college, we grew up in the same town on the same street. Like, I love that. And I think that's great. But if that's not bringing you to your goal, are you willing to trade in the success you want for your friendships? That's a simple, I think I'm good at that because I've always had a very small core group of friends. And for me, I like Andrew, I traded in everything for this, everything. You know, I've given up a lot. And for me, I want to make sure I'm aligned with the people who are going to help me get there and the people I can help get there too. And then in terms of like intimate relationships, when people say you should go be single for a while, I think what they're actually saying is you should go improve for a while. And I think there's a disconnect between being single and being miserable and being single and getting better. The only reason I'm capable of attracting and sustaining the amazing relationship I have is because of the person I've become. That's the only reason. It's because I am patient enough to have the hard conversations. I am responsible enough to hold up my end of the bargain, right? Extreme ownership. My girlfriend and I had a really hard conversation last night, one of the hardest ones we've ever had. But we're closer today because of it. And we're already making changes in the business because of it, right? Like, she's the ride or die for me. So for me, it's like, how do I make that work? I think for me, I just have to be better. That's always the answer for us, is just be better than we are.
Fireman.
I appreciate that.
And when he met Taryn originally, I would argue that Taryn was more growth oriented because he met her how many years prior?
I met my girlfriend when I was a bodybuilding bro, and I had never read a book. At that point, I had never read a book. I didn't know what personal development was. There was no vision of having a podcast. That was probably like 5 years ago. Yeah.
Jacked though.
I was jacked.
Yeah. He thought that would solve all his problems.
That's about all I had.
But I think then he became the man that that could attract and sustain a relationship like that, and then naturally it aligned again. So to answer your original question about relationships, though, I'll say this story because I think it will resonate. So imagine you're in the gym and Kevin's in the gym and he's squatting 3 plates on each side, so 315 pounds. Okay, the percentage of people that can squat 315 pounds is fairly low, in a normal statistical population. If he's looking for a spot, he's going to find another really strong looking human to spot him. Why? Because benefit of the doubt, statistically, he's going to be right that. So let's say he saw me in the gym lifting and we weren't friends.
Pass.
Hard pass, walk right by him. He might say, hey man, can you come spot me? Rather than someone who's maybe 100 pounds and just brand new to the gym. Why? Not because the 100-pound person who's new to the gym is a bad person or anything, but because Kevin's going to go with someone who he knows can handle the job. The reason why I tell this story is because I have this one mentor who's changed my life, and he was the COO of iRobot, and he's been the CEO of several billion-dollar tech companies. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because he's changed my life, but he's not like on Instagram saying, hey, do you want business advice? Right. So the people who are at the highest levels in life in terms of success, they're not going to seek you out necessarily. They'll seek you out to buy their book, but you're going to have to be really proactive about, if you want to get around people that are wiser, have more knowledge, more experience, and who really are just ahead of you in the success journey, you're going to have to be proactive. Now, if Kevin reaches out to me for a spot, that's because he believes on some subconscious level that I'm on his level. That's the law of attraction at work. Now, if he were to try to go to the gym with Jay Cutler, that might be really difficult. So for those of you who don't know Jay Cutler, he's one of the most successful bodybuilders in the world. Why? Because Jay Cutler's busy. Jay Cutler's not going to say, hey, Kev, can you come to the gym with me? And I think it's a hard truth, but it's important. So how do you build amazing relationships? You find ways to add value to people that are way ahead of you. And then you have the curiosity that we started with to really try to learn from them. That's really how we got Dave Meltzer as a mentor. We were just insatiably curious. And the questions that I asked him intrigued him enough to really want to learn more about us. And I just would encourage everyone to do that.
And I sat through an enormous amount of pain.
For sure.
This is what happened, Andrew. We drove to New Jersey to see Dave Meltzer speak. We live in Massachusetts. So for us, it's like a 4-hour drive.
Okay.
We got there and the schedule was screwed up. He had already spoken. We saw Michael Burt speak, and then Alan went up to him and we ended up getting him on the podcast. We're getting ready to leave. And some lady walked up to us who organized the event and said, hey, where are you guys? Like, what are you guys doing? And we were like, we were here to see Dave Meltzer speak, but we missed him. We missed him speak. And she's like, you know what? You guys got to meet him. I have a feeling about you guys. And she literally walked us down the hallway.
After taking pictures with us.
And said, Dave's doing a meetup right now. Like, pull up 2 chairs. And then Alan talked about power versus force. And I'm sitting there just like, oh my God, I can't take any more of this because I was in so over my head. But that was what it took for us to do that.
3 hours straight.
Yeah.
With Dave Meltzer.
It was brutal.
Wow.
Okay. Fast forward. We find out Dave Meltzer's coming to Boston. We book a hotel at the Hilton. We take one of the beds and stack it on top of the other bed. And Dave Meltzer comes to our hotel room and we interviewed him. And it's like, he saw that like, these guys aren't going to stop. Like we tore apart the whole hotel
$500 hotel room.
Yeah.
We did not have that money.
No, we broke one of our lights. Like we broke our equipment. But I think it's like,
it's the darkest interview ever.
It was brutal. It was brutal, but it's one of those things of like, I think naturally when we meet somebody, we say, how committed is this person? How committed are you to getting better? How committed are you to being fulfilled? How committed are you to your relationship? That's the question I would ask if you're watching or listening to this. There's a big difference between being in a relationship and being committed to a relationship. There's a huge difference. I will die for this podcast. I've almost done it. I will die for my relationship. I haven't almost done that, but that's how committed I am. There is nothing else. There is nothing else for me other than my relationship with my amazing girlfriend and our listeners, our amazing family. But this journey is like, I'm committed all the way, and you can tell, right? You can tell. That's why you're pulled to us.
Absolutely. And I love that. And even that meetup, I actually remember while I was working for David, going through and cutting up that content. And you guys were sitting there and talking about it. I'm like, no way. And I think I said it to Kevin. He's like, yeah, that's the first time we met Dave. And I was like, it's just so real to just hear that story now, and like how I was just sitting there and just going through the content. I'm like, that's Kevin and Alan. I'm like, so crazy. But with that said, like, it was a long journey of commitment, and that you guys, from where you started, so I mean, you guys are what, over 400, 500 episodes, somewhere around there?
560.
Wow. So that's one thing I want to touch on is kind of that patience. That feeling like most entrepreneurs feel of like feeling stuck. They're putting in all the work, they're doing everything that they told themselves they would do, and they're hitting all their marks, but nothing's happening yet. Like, where does that like patience come from? Especially because whether you guys are ahead of where you thought you'd be by now or behind, like it still takes patience to be able to produce those 560 episodes. So it's like, where does that patience, and how do you kind of stay in that flow of patience?
I'm so excited
Go
right
ahead.
now.
Go ahead.
So if anyone is out there listening and you're not driving, I seriously recommend just grabbing a pen and paper real quick, because this will change your life if you're not aware of this yet. So it's called the consistency flip, and it's called the bow tie. So there's an arrow from the bottom left of the page. Oh yeah, here we go. From the bottom left of the page to the upper right of the page, and then another arrow from the top left of the page to the bottom right. So it looks like a bow tie, okay? Now, the first arrow from bottom left to upper right is results out. From the upper left to the bottom right is effort in. At the beginning of any journey, fitness, entrepreneurship, you name it, even a relationship, intimate relationship, the level of effort in is a level 10 for almost no results out. Okay, then eventually it becomes 9 and 1. Then it becomes 8 and 2, 7 and 3, 6 and 4. Eventually you get to 5 and 5. That's the center of the bow tie. And by the way, that's in entrepreneurship, that's 5 or 6 years in, depending on how quickly you accelerate. But eventually it flips. Okay. And eventually you get to the point where it's the other way. It's level 4 effort in for level 6 results back. Then it's, level 3 effort for 7 back. And eventually it's 10 and 0. Joe Rogan can never podcast again for the rest of his existence, and you and me and Kevin will never catch him. Here's why. He did it longer than anyone else, more consistently than anyone else. It's just like a 401k. If I invest the same amount of money for the first 20 years and then I stop at 20 years and then you start, you will never catch me. It's the law of compounding. It's called the consistency flip. When you see someone with patience, they're not more patient than you. They're more aware of the future and the compound effect. Einstein called the compound effect, or the law of compounding, the 8th wonder of the world. Don't trust me, trust Albert Einstein. Consistency is the game. The last thing I'll say before I let Kevin go on this question, with consistency, almost anything is possible. Without it, honestly, almost nothing is. And I want everyone listening to really think about what I just said. With consistency, almost anything is possible. Without it, almost nothing is. And that's why we appear so patient. We're not as patient as you think.
And I think the most important thing that a lot of people don't talk about now, especially now in the space where everything's digital and you can be an entrepreneur tomorrow if you want.
Right.
If it's not something you love, it's going to be way harder. Like, we love podcasting. The fact that we get to go on your show, we get to come here, is amazing. That's a 10 out of 10. Like, we love that. So
thank you.
It's different than like if you said, Kev, I want you to go hang a picture. If you asked me to hang a picture every day for 560 days straight, I wouldn't do it. Right. I can guarantee it. It's not aligned for me. So if you're early in business, you'll see this a lot. Like, I'm a social media marketer. I'm a social media manager. I'm blah, blah, blah. Are you doing it for the result? Or are you doing it for the journey and the process and who you'll become? I think there's a big difference. Like, we love podcasting. It's easy to podcast broke when you love podcasting.
Right.
We didn't get into this to make money. And that's a whole nother thing. And we eventually switched that. And it was like, okay, we can't do this forever because you and I are going to be living under a bridge, the best podcasters in the world. But I do think, like Alan said, you're going to have to do it for a while. It's going to be way easier to do something you love. I think that I say, which P, like, where are your P's? Passion versus purpose. Passion versus profit. A lot of people try to find something profitable and make themselves passionate about it.
Right.
We found something we were super passionate about and then made it profitable. I think that's when the consistency flip actually matters. when you go from just loving it to loving it and making money.
That was one of the best things you've ever said.
Honestly, I jeffed it.
fire.
I jeffed the dual T part. It would have been seamless if I didn't jeff
No,
it.
but that concept is so power. Like, take what you're passionate about and then find a way to make a profit, not the other way around.
Yeah.
If you asked me to go be a chef, I would suck at cooking, not because I can't get good at it, but because I don't want to.
And you eat all the food.
And I would eat all the food.
Yeah.
So that's so important. Time remaining 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just, you know, that consistency flip is so important. Yeah, I've actually heard you guys talk about it before, but yeah, that was a really good way that you put it there, Kevin. Like, it just resonates at different ways. So it's just like, you know, it takes that time too to just build up kind of like that resiliency, that commitment, that desire, that passion, right? Like, you don't just wake up tomorrow with that deep passion, like you continuously deepen that every day. So one of the last questions I want to touch on was, you know, how do you guys, or how much time and effort do you guys put into like daily kind of investing in yourself and continuously either learning or personal development? Like, what does that look like in your daily routine, you know, aside from maybe just your daily, you know, non-negotiables, as well as, you know, how much are you spending on learning more about personal development, learning more about your craft, learning more, like how much time are you being a student per that day while you're still in during that journey, you know?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the day. For me, my non-negotiable, every day I learn for 40 minutes every day. I haven't missed a day of learning in years at this point, which is amazing. I love that. Huge. One of the things that I think we have the very unique benefit of that not many people do, and you will too, you and Jacob will have this. When you lock Alan and I in a room, we don't talk about anything other than this. So like the intangibles, Alan and I literally redid part of our business today.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody will ever know about that. We'll probably never do an episode on it. I may never talk about it again. But it's one of the most impactful things that has ever happened to us. So I think it has to do with your level of how much are you trying to master this thing. What I know about podcasting is good enough to get me to where I am. Like if I don't ever want to grow again, I don't really have to learn about podcasting, right? But if I want to have, you know, next level podcast solutions, the most, you know, profitable and biggest agency in terms of what I have to learn a lot. If I want to be the Joe Rogan of personal development, I have to learn a lot, right? I think it has to do with that as well. Like your commitment is going to be to the level of the outcome that you desire. And if you're past where you thought you could get, there really is no reason for you to keep showing up, you know? So I think it's about how committed are you to the goal that you actually want, and how aware are you of what it'll take, right? Like I want to be a billionaire like Dave. Like I want to have a net worth of at least $1 billion. I might wake up in 6 years and be like, hell no. No, this isn't what I want. I didn't realize it was going to be this much, right? I think that's the thing too, the awareness of what will it actually take and am I willing to sign up for that?
Regarding the how often are we a student, there's a couple ways I could go with this. Why don't I'll just break down my day quickly for anyone listening. So I break my day into thirds, and my first third is for me. My second third is for service. And my third is for fitness and my intimate relationship and R&R. So if I'm spending time with Emilia, that's rest and relaxation plus my relationship. And I go to the gym in the evenings. But to answer your question about how personal development is a part of my life, every single morning when I wake up, I have something called a morning mindset workout. It's actually on my YouTube. And there's one video called Ode to Excellence by our friend Eddie Pinero. And for the last 6 years, literally, I've woken up every single day, and that's the first thing I listen to. I've never missed a day. So 6 times 365 is upwards of 2,500 or something like that. More than that? 600 times?
No, man. Probably like 2,200.
2,200?
Something like that.
So, and the reason why is it's called Ode to Excellence. It primes my mind. And that's kind of like a morning mindset meditation sort of thing for me. Then I go into, so out of that first third, it has 3 phases. The first phase is my morning mindset workout. The second phase is while I do my stuff, whether it's simple stuff like cleaning my room or showering, I put on something that's a speech or a podcast that I've heard before. Have you ever watched a movie that you've seen so many times that you can watch it without really having to pay attention?
Yep.
That's what I do with personal development. So the Ode to Excellence, I've heard so many times that I just put it on in the background. It was literally on my phone and I just did my morning. Okay. Second part is kind of like that, where it's half and half. So what did I listen to? I think I listened to a speech by Darren Hardy that I've heard dozens of times. So when I'm in the shower, I don't actually have to listen to really hear it, but I'm basically priming my subconscious, but I can pay attention if I want. Now, the third of that first third is where the real personal development happens. So on my car ride to the studio, I'm always listening to either a book or our own episodes. So I often say get high on your own supply if you're a podcaster. Why? Because you're going to see how many times did I say, do I have good pauses? You're going to become a better speaker. You got to have that pain. This is why athletes like Tom Brady review the game, especially the games they lost, because that's how they get better. So that's my personal development. The first third is where I'm a student. The second third is where I'm teaching and service. The third is R&R.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And I'm going to just start listening to all the podcasts back every single time. I have to go back to this one for sure. I got a lot of notes to take down, but absolutely amazing. Like, just the way you guys have been able to structure out and be able to actually, make a sustainable process of building and constantly doing that incremental growth, right? Versus kind of the ebbs and flows. You take your emotion out of it, and you guys just have such a great approach to being able to set yourself up for success every single day. So with that, I want to touch on last here is this something that me and Jacob adopted from you guys that we use in our Sunday accountability, everything. But I want to get some 10-second blips from you guys on that person right now who's thinking about jumping, who kind of wants to do more and has the little bit of dreams still left over of, can I do it? Or maybe I could, maybe I should. What's a 10-second blip for those people that are scared about jumping and taking that first leap into entrepreneurship?
Go ahead. I know it'll be probably 30 to 40 seconds.
Yeah, the 40-second blip. I didn't tell my story on this, but when my father was 28, he passed away in a car accident, and I was 2. When I was 26, I almost had that same thing happen to me, but I was given a second chance that my dad never had to turn it all around. And the man I am today, 6 years later, is so different than the man I was at 26. I would say this: you have a spotless future, but you'll regret it if you don't take advantage of it. There are so many people out there that wish they had a second chance, and this is yours.
Beautiful.
All right. I would say, honestly, the leap is the easiest part. Everything else after is the hard part. Like jumping from one thing to another isn't hard. It's the staying power. I think that you have to understand at a deep level why you want to do what you want to do, because on the days where it's hard, and it will be hard, I'd be lying to you, and I will never lie and say this is the easiest thing I've ever done, because it's not. On those days, you're going to have something to look at and say like, you know what? This is why I started that. I think don't worry as much about the leap. Worry about what wings you're going to have to create on the way down and why you're actually leaping. Like, where are you going to land when you leap? I think so many people want to leap, but they don't know where they want to land yet. I got lucky. Like when I left my job, I don't want to say I got lucky. I worked really hard, but like I was already connected with Alan. Everything just kind of made sense, right? I already knew what I wanted to do. I think that's the first step. Get clarity while you can, because when you leap and you don't know where you're going to land, that's where a lot of people get in trouble. That's when you end up broke. That's when you end up, super scarce. Like make sure you know where you're going to leap and land before you do it.
Amazing.
40 seconds.
40-second blips. Awesome. You know what? I just want to thank you guys so much for spending this time of coming on, and anyone who wants to check them out, I will be putting all their information from them in the show notes below. So make sure you guys check these guys out, the Next Level University, and you check out their podcast. Follow them on Instagram. Like I'm going to put everything in the show notes. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being here and taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. This was fire. Great questions, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And with that said, I would like to thank you guys for coming to this episode of Road to 100 Million. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.